So what we've done is create the full life cycle of what a real estate investor's life looks like, or could look like, right? We talk about one of the basics, which is wholesaling, that concept of how do you wholesale a contract? And then, this month in February, we talk about, well, once you know that concept, how do you start marketing so that sellers call you, and then next month will be like how to handle that call. But how do you market so that distressed sellers call you, and who is the avatar that you're going after? Because when we first started this, at least when I first started this, I thought that everybody was really kind of a prospect. I didn't understand like what a true motivated seller looked like. And so what we're going to do is kind of paint the picture of what a true motivated seller looks like, and then the type of marketing that we do in order to attract that seller and then solve their problem. Because after all, we're in the business of solving problems. That's what we're, marketing and solving problems business. Okay. So for those that don't know, my name is Rob Chevez. I'm the facilitator of this Reston Grid meetup. Mark Beckett is my partner in crime. He runs the construction investment arm of our business. And we've been doing this now for, like I said, a little over, I think you and I, 13 years.
I think it's been at least a baker's dozen at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I call him the professor. He's a smart guy, and I'm just, I'm the talking piece. I'm the mouthpiece.
I'm our CEO. I'm the Chief Explanation Officer.
That's right.
I love to hear myself talk. Ask me anything.
And our intent, our intent is, we always say that we're facilitators of a conversation. We never claim to be experts, although we'll always tell you what we've done. But we just want to facilitate a conversation, and we make this collaborative. So if you guys got questions in the middle of this, just ask questions. This is not about us monologuing and just teaching on a topic. Like, ask questions, okay? We want you to leave being like, how do I do this? How do I connect the dots? What am I missing, right? Because I know when I used to come to our investment groups, the RIAs, before I ever ran this one, I always felt like I left with lots of questions, right? So I don't want you to leave questions. So the way we always start these off is just some basic intros.
Yep.
Right? So
you're Rob.
You're Mark.
What do you do?
I run the retail agent side of our business. So we did around 155 million last year, and we help people buy and sell houses traditionally, right? We have a network of investors that we do a lot of business with, but it's only comprised of maybe just 20% of our business. The majority of our business is helping a regular seller, a regular buyer, buy more effectively and sell more effectively, right? That's what I do. I just happen to know a lot about investments because that was the path that my wife and I started on 20 years ago, right? And now it's really kind of my passion. So,
Mark Beckett. As Rob said, I run CAZA Construction. That's our construction arm of the business. Try to get dirty every once in a while with my own stuff while we're also working on client properties and and kind of assisting the agent business in the pre-sale renovation space also. So for those that are agents here in the Northern Virginia area that are looking to maximize the value of your client's properties, love to help you with that. And as I said, occasionally try to do some deals for ourselves, so try to buy fix and flips when we can. Rentals, we're going to start doing short-term rental property here in the coming months.
A really cute house in Front Royal under contract, so for Airbnb.
So always looking for deals, right? Anybody has anything they want to talk about, want to sell, want to maybe partner on, we love doing those things. I just like looking at deals. So if you've got something you think might be of interest, please do reach out and let us know. Other than that, I'm here because we get business from this room, and everyone here should probably do the same. So we'll let you all kind of give your pitches here for a few seconds. And those online, you can do the same. In the chat, feel free to put your name, contact information. If you've got a deal, something you want to promote, chat box is the place to do it for everybody who's watching or will see this later as it is being recorded. But we're going to talk about a topic, and we'll cover as much as we can. As Rob said, we want to try to get you dangerous, but we're probably not going to be able to cover all the ins and outs of even just this one topic in an hour tonight. The other reason we do this is hopefully we can kind of continue this conversation, right? So let's have our discussion, but please take us to coffee, right? Rob
Yeah.
loves talking about real estate. I love talking about real estate. We'd love to talk to you about what you're trying to accomplish in investment real estate. That is where the magic happens for us, and the same for you. That's why we talk, and then we network.
And by the way, networking is the key part, right? So everybody online, make sure that you're networking with each other and collecting each other's information, because part of what we teach tonight is the collection of information. It's a collection of relationships, collecting of emails, collecting of phone numbers, right? Your net worth is going to be a direct correlation to the amount of people that you know and that are in your database, and we're going to talk about that.
Yep. So that's us. But again, we want everyone here to kind of know who else is in the room so that you can also network with one another. So we go around, you give us your 30-second pitch. Who are you? What are you looking for? Why are you here? What are you doing? What can we get into?
I'll start with Robert.
Fire away.
Robert, go ahead.
Hi guys, Robert, new to REI, here to learn for the most part.
Awesome.
Buy and hold currently in the Baltimore County area.
Okay.
So yeah, cool.
I'll give you like Vaya con Dios.
Everybody else.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Sloan. I'm a realtor with Sampson Properties in Reston. Was with this office for quite a while before that, and I do some buy and hold primarily in Reston.
Yeah.
So
Good to see you, man.
good to see you too.
Yeah.
I'm Lori, started as a real estate investor and then went into custom home building, and now I'm a real estate agent.
I'm Chad. I'm married to Lori. That's my son back there in the back. So I'm here to support them tonight. But I'm actually in the insurance business, so I'm sure a lot of these properties that you all are talking about.
That's right. For 30 years,
30
Right.
years.
which is crazy because you're like 30 years old, right? Yeah, that's
Remind
awesome.
you to work on your eyes, but thank you, Rob. That's all we got.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi guys, my name is Jake. I'm just kind of new here to the East Coast from Austin, Texas. I've got a brand new commercial loan consulting business, so we do a lot of funding for a lot of folks probably in here for fix and flips and stuff. But I've also got a friend, and we're looking to buy some properties and kind of get into that sort of thing. So
Awesome.
looking forward to tonight's discussion.
So we actually have a grid in Austin. That's
Yeah,
right.
you guys got them all over the place.
Yeah, we have a grid in Austin run by
That's awesome.
an amazing leader, and they do a phenomenal job. So,
Austin's a good
yeah, it's a
spot.
good market.
Yeah.
Good market. Roxana.
I'm Roxana. I'm an agent at this office, and me and my husband owns an appliance repair business. So we do heating and cooling, and also any other appliances. So if you guys need any appliances repair, you can reach out to me.
And they're awesome.
They're great.
They are fantastic. You should
Yeah.
do that.
I was going to say the same thing. We've used the service. It's a phenomenal service.
Yeah, your husband's a wizard. The wizard, right? So very cool.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Coleman. I work for McLean Mortgage. I'm a lender by trade, but I've gotten into real estate investing. About over the course of the past 2 years, my mother and I have partnered on a variety of different properties. Some buy and hold, some flips. The most recent of which was Wednesday of this week. We just ratified another deal. So,
Boom.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're really excited about that, and here to learn how to find more deals.
Awesome.
Where's your project?
So the most recent one's in Front Royal. So a fix and flip kind of deal.
Awesome. That's where we just got ours.
Yeah.
Did I tell you that we just put one under contract?
I don't think you
Yeah, okay. I'll show you afterwards. It's not a fix and flip. It's a buy and hold.
Okay, cool.
So,
Hi everyone, my name is Dan Soul. I'm also a mortgage lender and I'm a great friend of Coleman's, and I used to work with him. So I'm new to real estate investing. I bought a buy and hold about a year ago. So I'm trying to get more involved, and obviously Coleman is more involved than I am, and we always talk about it. So I'm trying to learn more and expand on what I've already started with.
awesome. Good to have you.
Hi, I'm Grace Chicka. I'm a real estate agent with Compass, and this is all a brand new territory for me. I'm looking to get involved in investing through the path of short-term rentals.
Awesome. Welcome, Grace. Very cool.
Hey everyone, I'm Gerald. I'm a real estate agent with CAZA, so I get to work with the two gentlemen up front. And I'm here just to expand, my knowledge base, and one day get to start my own portfolio of rental properties, perhaps.
Very cool.
Jeremy Johnson, McLean Mortgage as well. Just here to learn, just out of curiosity. I am in the process of converting my primary to a rental, so buy and hold, and then looking to add some more along the way.
Great. And Coleman, like, it's like dragging you in here, man. It's good stuff. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Minu. I'm new to real estate investing. I'm here to get educated and inspired by smart people like you guys. So glad to hear it.
Thank you for coming.
I'm Mike. I'm also an agent. I work with Rob at the CAZA Group. I'm primarily interested in buy and holds when it comes to investing, but I also like to work with investors and try to connect with landlords in particular about just supporting them any way that I can.
He focuses more on our investment vertical. So, very cool. Awesome. Okay.
Well, you want to say hello? I think we have one.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to
You
come
come
in.
in? No
That's
worries.
okay.
Say hi.
My name is Natalie. I work at the CAZA Group with Mike and Rob, and I am here to get educated.
It's good to have you here, Natalie.
Cool. Education is what we do. Education, collaboration, and as Rob said, discussion, right? So again, at any point, at any time, stop, wave your hand, ask a question. There are no bad ones. Online, maybe, we can kind of sort of see the chat perhaps. Perhaps if you've got questions, you can ask Rob. Is live streaming there as well, might be able to catch him there. But you really want to see where it's all going down, you have to be here in the room. So we encourage anyone who can to come out, because after we talk about our thing, we're going to chat a little bit and network with one another, see if we can make some deals. Small type mumbo jumbo is just telling you we're not accountants, attorneys, legal advice, anything else. This is all probably nonsense, so don't listen to any of it.
Our insurance person said that we needed to put this into all of our slides.
Or do.
Risk management.
We're just talking about what we do. We're not telling you what to do, and anybody that you meet and anything that you talk about in the room with anybody else, you should probably vet fully and make sure you know what you're getting into, right? That's kind of how that works. So, we want to get the phone to ring with people begging us to buy their house for 50 cents on the dollar. What is that then? You got a yellow pages thing? That you got billboards out there? What do you do? How do you reach people?
Okay, so the first thing is you need to understand the psychology of this seller. Okay, this is not a traditional seller. This is somebody that is either frozen because of circumstance, life circumstance, right? Maybe they're going through divorce, or there's death, or there's debt, or there's something that's there that's caused some kind of emotional distress, right? And the house normally also reflects that, by the way. The house normally has had a lot of deferred maintenance over an extended period of time. And so what I want to have you guys wrap your mind around is that these are the properties that you walk into, and typically you're like, man, what's going on? There's mold in the basement. There's literally leaks in the roof that haven't been addressed in years, right? There's, hoarding situations that are really, really bad. You're just like, hey, how can anybody live in this? And so these are people that are trapped, right? And our job is to help them become untrapped from this from this house. And so you need to understand that, because it's not like you're going to market to people that don't have some kind of either issue with the property or some kind of life issue, right? Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes the life issue is just like, I want convenience and I don't have the time, and I need to be in Austin, Texas in the next 10 days, and I'm willing to trade some equity for convenience, right? But for the most part, there's going to be some kind of issue that's there. But here's the thing that we face. This is the problem. This is a massive market. The DMV area is huge. Can you market to the entire DMV area when you first start off? No, you can't, right? You can't do it. So you have to start kind of picking your battles, and you got to say, okay, I need to focus on one area first. And maybe the best area is kind of an area that's in your backyard or an area close to you, and we call that zoning a market. Like, you're going to pick a hyper-local geographic market that is potentially going to be your fishing ground, right? So you could say Front Royal is going to be my fishing ground, right? Not all of Northern Virginia, not Ashburn, and even Front Royal is massive. So think about this. When you look at Front Royal and you say, how many absentee owners are there? Thousands. Okay, there's going to be thousands. how many, so you've got absentee owners, you have properties that are going into probate, you've got divorce attorneys, you've got anybody that might be able to, so this, we're gonna talk a little bit about that. Anybody that might be able to lead you into a deal, you start thinking about all the different sources, right? But we always talk about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're talking about two different kinds of market, right? A psychological market.
Psychographic.
And a geographic market, right?
That's right.
So the psychological market is who are the people I can help. There's, as you said, almost always some kind of issue. No one sells us a house for 50 cents on the dollar because it's in beautiful condition and they have plenty of money to clean it up and all the time in the world to let everybody know that it's for sale and sell it, right? Something's going on, there's a problem, we have to find out what the problem is, we have to offer a solution that helps that problem. That's the psychological end of the market. The geographical bit is what you're talking about now, saying, okay, I can do this anywhere, but why wouldn't you try? You say, all right, we'll pick a market, but why wouldn't I just say, well, I'll just tell people I buy houses anywhere. I'm looking for a deal, anywhere it makes sense. And maybe I'll even send some postcards or letters out and around anybody I can find. Wouldn't that eventually turn up something?
Maybe, but more than likely you're gonna go broke, right, doing that. Why? Because your message isn't resonating with anybody at any particular time, right? So think about this. When you walk into a room like this and you said, I'm a wholesaler, right? Well, there's lots of wholesalers that might be in here as well. But if you say, I'm a wholesaler that focuses on Front Royal, now the RAS in your brain, right, reticular activation system in your brain says, hey, I remember this wholesaler that specialized in Front Royal. So if they ever run across something, that's who they think of you, right? But what you got to do is you got to create that message over and over and over and over again, right? So what we want to do, I mean, you guys know this, you've seen it in your life. You start shopping for a car, what happens? You see that car everywhere on the road, right? This is how marketing works, right? You start paying attention to the things that you're focused on. So what we teach everybody to do is to focus on a hyper-local market first, right? So that you could then, when you start saying, well, and there's some advantages to that, by the way. When you do that, you become an expert in that market. It's hard to become an expert in Front Royal, Winchester, right, Reston, Herndon, DC. There's only a few people I know that know all of the DMV area, and one of them is right here, right? Like literally I'd be like, hey, what do you think of this area, right? But he's analyzed thousands of properties.
And even then, it's still not viable to try to work in all of them at the scale that I want to run. We know people who run much larger organizations and market to the entire DMV, and that's their model, and that's the thing that they're doing. But it's also difficult to sometimes let go of possible opportunity. It happens in every business. It happens in the construction business. Like, well, we could do this and we could do that, or we could build like apartment buildings, or we could build single families, or we could maybe just do townhouses, or we could do urban stuff, or we could do like far out stuff. You could do all kinds of stuff, but you'll never get good at any of it until you choose one, maybe two of these paths and get good at it and learn it. And more importantly, if you depend on other people to bring you opportunity, they need to think of you when the opportunity comes up. If I just say, I'm looking for opportunity, no one's ever going to call me thinking, oh, I know of an opportunity. That guy said he wanted an opportunity. But if I said, I'm looking to buy beat up houses in Reston from people who have some kind of thing going on that probably need to sell the house relatively quickly or in as-is condition, if you see or hear or know of anybody in that situation, I can help them and I can monetize that for you and make sure that you get something out of it too. Sound good? You stand a lot better chance of when that happens. Oh yeah, that dude said he was looking for the thing in Reston. I just drove by and the window's falling out of it. That happens. That's the reticular activation, right?
That's right. That's right.
You put a specific idea in somebody's mind, and they think of you when they have that situation.
Yeah, and the way it becomes powerful is when you do it multiple times, right? Because you can tell somebody that message one time, but it's not going to stick with them. But when you become the investor in Reston and they see that postcard or that email over and over and over and over and over again, when they do run across a deal, guess what? They think about you, and then that's when you get the deal, right? And it's always, hang on one second, it's always speed. In this business, it's all about speed. So the person that acts the fastest is the one that typically knows the most, right? If I'm now trying to figure out Front Royal and a deal comes across your plate and you already know it, and I'm just trying to figure it out, you're going to pull the trigger faster and be able to get to that deal faster and win it, right? So having knowledge, insider knowledge of one market is so much better, right, than trying to do all things, be all things to all people. Sloan,
I was just going to reiterate, it's like any effective advertising. Like, you know those Liberty Mutual commercials, and they go, Liberty, 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 Liberty. They repeat their name over and over, and that's not, there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, for sure.
So.
Yeah.
So what makes for a good market? Why Front Royal or Reston or Herndon and maybe not Falling Waters, West Virginia?
Yeah, what we want to see is we want to see where product is, okay, one, we want a dense area. Dense area makes it so much easier because there's lots of comps, right, in a dense area. I can look at, let's look at Reston right here, right? I can look at a community in Reston, I can see all the townhouses that are selling, and figuring out the comps are so much easier in a dense area than maybe, you know, in Falling Water, and there might be like one every, I don't know, 2 miles away from each other, right? It becomes more difficult to understand that. But sometimes new communities are not great targets either. Why? Because not enough has gone wrong with that property over time. So normally we want established neighborhoods where you see growth happening, right? And you see transitioning occurring in those neighborhoods, like people are renovating those houses, people are popping the tops, people are adding additions. And you start thinking about Arlington, what happened in Arlington like 15 years ago, and then Vienna, what's been going on in Vienna, right, which is just crazy. And then you start seeing different parts, like Reston is now starting to see some additions. You only started seeing those additions 4 or 5 years ago. You'll start seeing some of that inventory turn to new construction. We already have some new construction, but they're on undeveloped lots, right, where that new construction's occurring. So you want to be able to have a comp pool to be able to pull from. And you want to be able to be looking in a market that's growing versus dying.
Right. To the degree that you're looking to do what we would call bread and butter, fix and flip kind of stuff. If you're looking to do short-term rental, maybe your market is different. Falling Water, West Virginia might be a great place, right?
That's right.
We've got grid partners that are in Tennessee that are doing awesome in markets that aren't necessarily dense, but there's enough going on that you can kind of tell, but it's a different kind of market analysis that you do. A lot of what we're talking about now with kind of being really specific about your neighborhood and your market or your zip code is mostly germane to kind of fix and flip. And I guess maybe building in new construction. But
well, you know, even in some of those dying markets, like the fix and flips completely, they work. Yeah. It's the buy and holds in those markets that are bad because over time those values don't increase.
We know about that, right?
So
what happens in what we would call cheap markets? Why would a market be cheap? So what's the least amount you pay for?
One of the reasons why I went like this, and you mentioned Baltimore, is you have to be careful, right? Because what happens is it's almost like a Venus flytrap. These properties look so attractive because their prices are so low, right? And then you're like, oh, I could buy a house for $30,000 or a row house or $40,000 or $50,000, but they're like that for a reason, right? And sometimes you can make a guess like, hey, this is a neighborhood that's going to turn over and all the rest, but you got to be really careful. It's almost street by street. What could happen is that you go into a market that's not growing, it's actually dying, which I bought in a market that was dying. And, you know, I bought a duplex 15 years ago for $50,000, and guess what it's worth today? $50,000. It's actually probably $40,000, right? It really is, right? So you have to be careful about some of those markets. But that's not what tonight's topic is about. So,
I think we're talking about analyzing potential. part of analyzing the potential of a market.
Well, you're right, you
is
need
knowing if that market is
viable
growing or not.
Yeah,
viable or
is
not.
that viable, is it a viable market?
We just take for granted that population is going up and every place is growing. Not true. There are plenty of places in the country where people are leaving, and that's probably not the place you
You're
want
gonna
to run
see the
into.
world, by the way, and Japan is kind of going through a problem like that. They can't give some of these houses away, right? Because the population is dying, everybody's moving into the cities, leaving the kind of the rural areas open. Right.
Talk about another new grid chapter. We just opened Detroit last month with Eric Germa, who's really active. I'm really curious to hear what his kind of last decade has been like, because Detroit was one of those places that did just get hollowed out, where the city literally bought back stuff just to knock it down. They had so much extra inventory. I imagine you have to be really knowledgeable about your block, about your street, about whatever's going on in even less than your zip code to be able to find value there and not end up on the wrong side of a neighborhood.
It's funny, I was just thinking about that because I'm from Detroit and went to school there and was thinking the exact same thing. I saw that you opened a grid in Detroit, and that would be really interesting to hear what they're doing there. They were selling lots for $900
It's
just
crazy.
10 years ago at the most.
Yep.
Yeah,
And what's
just
crazy
raising
is,
them.
you know, the guy that owns Quicken, right? Like, I went to go visit their operation about 5 years ago, and they gave me a tour, and they literally brought me to this map, right, of the entire downtown Detroit area, and they hit a little button, and it lit up all these buildings everywhere. And that's all the properties that he had purchased,
Yeah.
right? Because he wanted to bring back the city. Those are, it was like Batman or something. Like, he wanted to he wanted to bring back the city, and so he bought all this real estate, and it's gone up like
A lot
a
of
ton,
investment there
right?
now,
Yeah. So it's interesting, right?
All right, so we've now decided on our psychographic market, like what kind of person we kind of want to help. We've decided on where we want to be doing this, where we want to attract these opportunities from. Then what do you do to let people know that you're somebody that they should be talking to if they're having a problem? How do you build
A message.
you haven't met them yet, rapport with the
Okay,
message?
so this is interesting, right? Like, you can do research out there right now and look at some of the biggest home buyers that are out there, right? You've got Market Home Pro, or Market Pros, right? You got Express Home Buyers, you got Four Brothers, like, they're all doing, right, mass marketing. But they all have their own angle. You've got Express Home Buyers that's got the jingle. Express Home Buyers will buy your house in 7 days or less, and it's got a jingle with it, right?
And Brad, who owns the company, does the majority of their marketing.
He does all the marketing.
In
and,
the market.
And his thing is, he is kind of like the face, he's the brand, right? Express Home Buyers has got a jingle, the name itself tells you what it does, right? And that's kind of like a corporate brand, right? Then you've got like Four Brothers, which is a little bit different. It feels a little bit more like, oh, there's four brothers that are buying houses, although they're pretty big now, and it's not just four brothers, right? Or you could go the angle of, hey, it's just my wife and I, you know, that want to buy in the local neighborhood and local community, and you could go down for kind of like a friendly neighbor type of feel kind of marketing. You guys get to choose. This is your business, right, at this point. You get to choose. I like let's not be the big scary corporate, you know, entity. Let's be the local friendly investor that can solve your problems, right? I prefer that because I think that many times these people are a little bit scared. They're scared and there's a distrust about like, is a big bad investor going to come in and like steal my house, right? So when you start building and thinking about your marketing, you want to think about all those things. And you could start doing some more research on like, what are the colors? What colors attract? What colors like repel, right? What fonts? Like what is a website going to look like? I used to like, all the time, is like, everything that you do is a reflection of your brand that you put out to the marketplace. And so you got to be, for a long time, people would come in here with like business cards, sometimes those business cards were like printed on like this like really cheap laser paper, right? And they would give it to you. Nobody does this anymore because nobody does business cards anymore. But like right off the bat, what's the message that that's sending? Is this guy really going to be able to buy my house? I mean, it doesn't look like you can afford the paper, right, for this card. So like you just got to understand all the subliminal messages that you're sending when you're building this brand, right? And I would think that the biggest thing, one of the big things, is just be your authentic self in that process.
Yeah, clearly the homemade, torn off a sheet of paper card does not resonate with you, but I'll bet it could work for somebody if that was their thing. Like I'm super frugal and I'm gonna write it down on a scrap piece of gum wrapper and that's how I'm gonna get you my thing. You can build authenticity around anything. You have to own it though, right? It has to be within you. You can't be something, you shouldn't try to be something that you're not, or you'll end up like me in the beginning, like, well, I know like bandit signs are good, like I'm gonna get some bandit signs, stick them in the middle of the road. I literally felt like a bandit, like parking on the side. I'd like wait until there are like no cars coming at all.
Nobody likes putting bandit signs up there.
If you're putting a bandit sign out where there's no car coming for a full minute, probably not gonna get a lot of phone calls, but I couldn't do it. That wasn't me. That's not a thing that I'm comfortable doing. I like more of the consultative, I'm hopefully here to solve some kind of problem for you. Tell me more about your thing.
Yeah, but that's once you have the appointment, my friend.
Yeah,
you need to get the telephone to ring first, right?
Yep.
Which means you're gonna have to put out some, like what people don't understand is this is ultimately a marketing business, and there's 3 ways, right? So there's 3 ways to generate business, and it might be one of the other slides, right? There's only 3 ways. You're gonna prospect, right? You're gonna network, and you're gonna market. Right? Those are the only 3 ways: prospect, networking, and marketing. We always start with prospecting first because it's the least expensive, highest ROI, right? Because literally, when I first started, knock on doors, pre-foreclosure doors. Like there was a list. Hey, here's the list that's getting put out every single week, and I was targeting specifically Reston homes, and then we were going to go solve their problems by knocking on their door.
So prospecting is like you're not trying to attract anyone, you are going to them and saying, hey, I would like to buy your whatever. It's making offers, it's knocking on doors, it's literally trying to meet the market, right? Calling into the market, trying to meet the market where it's currently existing, right?
Sure. Yep.
So how is that then different than marketing?
Well, let's not jump real fast. Let's go to networking.
Well, I end on networking when I talk about these things because I prefer it as my main method of finding stuff. But sure, networking is what?
Well, networking is like this, right? Like when I talk to most investors that are not doing mass marketing, the majority of all of their business comes from people that they've met along the way. A wholesaler that they've met along the way, right? Or another rehabber, or it could be the mailman, or it could be the construction person that brings you the deal, or it could be, you're essentially gathering relationships. And now what you're doing is you're making sure that that relationship knows exactly what you do, right? Like I buy fix and flips in Winchester, right? And so if you run across a deal like this, let me know. And where do you meet these people? You meet them at BNIs, so Business Networking International. You meet them at meetup groups like this. You meet them at the Chamber of Commerce, just everywhere, right? And I'm a big fan of networking because, again, it's a low cost, high return, but you need to be able to gather relationships, put them, we'll cover it, put them into a database, right? And then market to them effectively. But it always starts with kind of like going direct, which is the most effective way to go in the beginning. Then it's networking, because networking will take time, because you're planting seeds. And then it's marketing once you make some money. Once you make some money off of prospecting and networking, then you've earned the right to spend some money on the marketing. But so many investors I see start with marketing because it's the passive thing. And then they send some marketing out and they don't get the response that they want fast enough and they run out of money. Why? Because marketing takes how long? How long does it take to do like effective marketing?
A year.
Right?
6 months.
6 months at a minimum, right?
And how about?
You got to commit.
as statistics go, what's the average response rate to just all global marketing? Just any mail, postcard.
You're talking like under a percent, like percent, 1 to 2?
Generally speaking, most marketing people will tell you the average response rate of most kind of mass marketing is under 1%. And I think it goes down a little every year because everybody's being blasted all the time with all kinds of stuff, right? So marketing is very much a numbers game, an attempt to stand out, an attempt to try to be hyper local and psychographic and pick good markets.
The truth is, it's so much easier today through PPC and Facebook to really target people. So much easier to do. But again, it's still going to cost you some money, right? One of the things I like about those tools is it helps you refine a message, right? So a great way to use PPC and Facebook marketing is to figure out what messages are resonating with the public, right? So if you want to test something, you literally can create 2 ads, right? And just say they're both targeting a, let's say, deep equity seller. So somebody that's been in the house for like 15 plus years, that the house needs a lot of work. And you create some kind of ad, you create 2 of those ads, and you see, you have copy and you have images, and you see which one wins out of these 2 ads. Which one is getting the best response? Which one's getting the most engagement? Whichever one wins, you kill the one that lost, and then you build a new one to try to beat this one. Does that make sense? And this is how you start refining your messages. And then that's a really inexpensive way to develop like postcards. Like before you send out like thousands of postcards and not know what the effectiveness of that postcard is going to be, you can actually create these ads on Facebook and on Google, and not spend a lot of money, but understand like what the avatar is going to respond to.
Right. Actually, I think I saw a message pop up on the Zoom. Someone made the point that saying, "Hey, I see you have a hoarded up house. How can I help?" That probably doesn't test well, right? We don't try to smack people upside the head with your place is horrible. Let me buy it out from under you. It's really more of the we're cool with anything. Have some issues? No problem. Leaky roof? We see that all the time. It's making sure that you mention the problem that they may be having, but in a way that kind of says we're really open to talking about it. We're okay with it.
So let's look at this prospecting, networking, marketing. It's the message is really simple. I remember when I first started, I was like, what is the message, right? And here's the message, right? It's as simple as this. If you're thinking about selling, I'm interested in buying. I buy properties in as-is condition. I can close whenever it's convenient for you, and I'm a cash buyer, right? So if you're thinking of selling, I'm interested in buying. That's the message. You can add a little fluff here and there. The idea is convenience. I'm going to make it easy, right? So sellers often don't want to sell on the open market because they don't want people coming through their house. That's one of them. Maybe they're embarrassed by people coming through. Maybe they don't want that. They view the realtor as only selling pretty houses, right? So they're worried about bringing the realtor in because they're maybe worried about that, right? So that's one reason. Another reason that they wouldn't use a realtor is because they think that somehow they're actually saving money by not going on the open market with a realtor, when in reality they're losing money when they do that. They think they're saving, they're actually losing, right? Because by definition, what does an investor do? Buy low, by definition, right? And if you're not exposing the property to the broad market, by definition, you're not going to get the best price for it. So all of the marketing that you see out there from all the big investors, it's typically like, hey, we'll buy it in as-is condition. There's no realtor commissions. Nobody's going to come through your house. And we'll settle at your convenience. Those are kind of the key elements, right? P.S. Some of them will front you cash up front. Some will say, hey, and if you need money right now to just like kind of take care of some stuff, if we negotiate a contract, we'll give you $5,000 up front or $10,000, whatever it is. So you'll see some more aggressive investors add that language in.
And to kind of close the loop on one of your earlier points about prospecting, networking, and marketing. You do the prospecting and you do the networking to get better at honing that message so that you know what works, so that when you're ready to start marketing, you already know what gets you into good conversations, right?
Well, yeah, what you don't want to do is spend money and never have had that conversation. So when you do get somebody to call you back, you don't know what to say, right? You haven't wrestled with that conversation yet. You haven't gone through that yet. So it's like, don't spend the money doing that until you actually have had these conversations with people, so that you know when somebody says, well, why should I sell to you, Mark? You know, Express Home Buyers is saying that they can close in 7 days and whatever.
That's a really good point. It goes beyond just knowing what pitch gets the best response. It's how do you respond when the call actually does come in. You'll be much better at that if you've knocked on a couple of doors and said, hey, I'm a neighborhood investor. I'm looking to buy houses in this neighborhood. If you know anybody who would happen to ever want to sell, I'll leave you a super clean, just rinsed it off business card if you can maybe give me a call. Have a bunch of those conversations and you'll be in at least a better position when somebody rings to say, oh, great, well, where's your house? Can you tell me a little about it? What's the situation? How can I help? All the things we talk about next month or a month after.
Right? It's like,
how
what
the conversation
happens,
goes.
What does that conversation sound like?
Right.
So,
okay. But we're going to prospect and we're going to network before we ever market, so that we get good at knowing what gets a good response, and that we can have some good practice time, so that when we do get a response, it's a more natural and rapport building conversation.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. Makes sense. All right. So.
Sloan had a question.
Sorry, just a quick question. Going back to the prospecting thing, where did you get your lists from, and where would you say the best prospecting lists are available today? I mean, are people going into Remine, or what
So it's
is
great.
the source of this?
So Remine is a tool. So Remine is a tool that realtors have access to, right? What's the other one that I bought you guys here recently? PropStream. PropStream is a software that gives you access to notices of default, all of that stuff, right? So you can get access these days to software that gives you access to all of those notices. These are public notices, right? If you didn't want to do any of that stuff, you can go completely old school, go to the Washington Post classified section. In there, they've got the foreclosure notices. In those foreclosure notices, you'll see like the 7 largest, real estate attorneys, like foreclosure attorneys that are there. You collect those names and numbers. For example, you might see Samuel White is one of the big ones, right? You'll then go to Samuel White's website. On his website, he has by law, they have to post every property that's in pre-foreclosure status in every county, right? So you could get a virtual assistant to every day scrape, right? I could already see Coleman thinking, like, you can literally get, I'll give you an example. You can get every virtual assistant with this task. Go find the 7 largest foreclosure attorneys in this market. Here are the websites, or like you can give them the websites. And whenever you see anything come up in Winchester, Front Royal, or Ashford, whatever your market is, I want you to send me that data, right? And every morning, your job is to go in there and send me that data. And now you've got a list, right? And by the way, by the time he gets there, you normally only have 3 weeks. It's fast, right? So by that time, it's already gone to the attorney. It's been announced. It's being announced in the papers. There's not much time, but you could buy that property, right?
And here's the good news: is as hard as it is to find good opportunities now, especially the markets, run way up, the values are as high as they've ever been. You have to overpay for everything, it feels like. This is the time when pre-foreclosure actually can work, because if it's going into foreclosure now on a property that maybe got bought in the last 10 years, it probably does have some equity. Not a really great strategy in 2008 and 9 and 10 and 11. The properties being foreclosed on at values at that point probably didn't have a lot of equity in them.
Yeah.
They could have a lot of equity by now.
But I made a lot of money with properties that didn't have a lot of equity, right?
Short sale.
I short sold all those properties, right? So literally our strategy was go in, stop the foreclosure, so that it literally would just stop the whole process. And then we negotiated everything with the bank. And my investors bought those properties, and the people were like free and clear of the the
That-
debt.
That's negotiating a short sale, which is more effort and takes more time, but now, if someone just for whatever reason is in the circumstance of dealing with a foreclosure on a property that they may have owned for 6, 7, 5, 4 years at this point in this market, there could still be a really good amount of equity there, and you can solve a problem. Don't let yourself get foreclosed on. Don't ruin your opportunity to buy a house for the next 7 years. You actually can sell this, maybe just for what's owed on it
Oh,
right
yeah.
now,
Yeah, yeah,
and
they've
I'd
got
be happy
equity.
to buy it and get you out clean. Right?
They've got equity, they can do it.
And you can still get out.
How would you get the seller's actual phone number? How would you contact the owners that are
So
in pre-foreclosure?
truepeoplesearch.com, truepeoplesearch.com,
Skip tracers.
yeah. Well, you can go to script, but they're gonna have to pay for that, but if you go to True People Search, it's free,
Yeah.
right?
I'm just saying for big lists.
Oh, for big list, yeah. But if you're looking for like an individual house, you can go to truepeoplesearch.com.
So you'd have the address from this, like, scraping the info from the pre-foreclosure attorneys.
Yeah.
And then you'd look up the address and it would.
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend that you do it, because what happens is it's gonna take time, you would get a virtual assistant to do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Speaking of lists and effort, short sales are good because they do take effort, and someone has to go through the steps. A lot of negotiation back and forth, and so you put effort in, you can usually get good opportunity out of it. Probate, same thing. Probate are lists that when someone passes away and that there's property in the estate, it shows up in probate records, and you can find out who's in charge of that, who's going to figure out what's going to happen with a house that may have been inherited by someone who doesn't live around here and doesn't know what to do with it. Really good opportunities to be helpful, really sensitive conversations, and not an easy thing for a lot of people to discuss in like a promotional way. But if you are that kind of person, and you are a consultative kind of person, you are there to help, and you do think you do have a solution.
You bring up a good point, and we're gonna hit the slide really fast.
Yeah.
Probate is a great example. So let's look at this. Now you know who your avatar is. Anybody that's like essentially become the personal representative of that estate. That's your target, right? There's a way to get that information. It's public knowledge. You can create that list. You can make telephone calls to those people. You can email those people. You can develop relationships with attorneys that specialize in probate, right? So you start seeing everything is synergistic with that one message. Somebody goes to your website. Now it talks about probate and how to handle the probate, and it's helpful for that particular person. When you start specializing in a niche like that, it makes you rise above all the other investors, because you're now solving their problem. You're speaking to their pain, right? The whole part of good marketing is to speak directly to that person's pain. If you're speaking in broad strokes to all the different types of problems that are out there, you're not really talking to anybody's pain, right? But if you're just specifically targeting probate people, that's a great zone, right? That's a great, so
how are you going to reach this list?
So here's the thing. Everybody does a good job of doing this. Like they'll come to just an example, they'll come to a networking event, maybe they'll collect a business card or such, and then what will happen is that they will leave here without ever really putting that information into a database that has actionable, like Sloan's laughing, right? Because he knows.
I've been trying to do this since the Clinton administration, but go on.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's hard, Sloan, let's be honest. Like most salespeople, most business are not wired to do that. They're just not. So when you know that you're not wired to do that, you need to hire somebody to do it for you, right? A virtual assistant or somebody to do it for you. Because your income will literally be a reflection of how big that list is, right? So you need to be able to be in the collection of people business and put them into a CRM. You want to know what CRM is the best CRM out there? The one you use. The one you use. You just commit to it and say, I'm just going to commit to this one, right? And every day I'm going to put in 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 10 people, and we call it stacking this, right? So every great marketer knows the bigger the list is, the more money you make. That's just how it works. It's just how it works. But the problem is most people don't. They put some are in their phone, some are in their email, some are in some part CRM that they have. You need to aggregate it all in one place, right? And then what has to happen is you need to segment that list a little bit, but not overly segment it, right? You might say, hey, this is my investor group. These are my investors. They love investments. But you could go too deep on that. You could say, well, I want to know fix and flip investors or wholesale investors or landlord investors. Like that's getting too complicated. Now you're never going to get it done. You just say investors, right? So you got to get out of your own way of making it too complicated. So you're going to build that list, and you're going to build it as big as you possibly can. You're going to feed it every single day. And then the most important part is that you got to create a rhythm for touching that list at least 3 to 4 times a month. And people are like, 3 to 4 times a month? Yeah, 3 to 4 times a month. That's how often you're going to do it. Normally you want to teach them something. You want to give them something. You want to provide them some kind of like information. So with probate, as an example, you might hit somebody with a letter, then you might hit somebody with a call, and then you might hit somebody with an email if you can get their email. That's 3 times, right? Or you could hit them with 2 letters, a call, and an email. That's 4 times, or 1 time a week. And the message essentially is giving them information about the process, right? Empowering them with information to make their life easier. Solving their problems, solving their pain, right? But if you don't have a CRM, you cannot create a touch system like that.
Did you know there are companies that will bring a truck to your house and it costs $300 per quarter of a load to haul things off? Doing that might make it easier for you to sell a property that has some things in it. Helpful piece of information.
Right. Here's the name of an estate attorney an estate attorney that could sell all mom and dad's things. If you're thinking about wanting to sell mom and dad's things because it's antique furniture, they'll come, they'll put a price on it, they'll sell it on consignment, right? That's the kind of thing that you would want to do to provide value to that avatar, right? But if you don't have a database, you can't do that effectively. And the truth is you need technology to do this for you because we can't be disciplined with thousands of people. You need the tech to be able to do it for you. You need to create maybe a series of 15, 20, 30 emails or like, hey, or actions like, hey Rob, you got to call this person today, right? Like alerts, and then you just follow the sequence of what happens, right? The tech will send out, 2 emails every single month that are pre-written, or 1 every single day, or whatever you want it. When we get an initial lead in, it's like 10 touches in the first week and a half. It's a lot of touches because it takes 8 to cement kind of like, hey, who is this company, right?
And now your side of the business uses Privity.
We use Privity.
Kind of agent focused, but MailChimp is still one of the better email platforms, right?
Yeah, but the problem with MailChimp is that it's not auto. You need to create it and then you got to send it out, right? And so you just have to figure out, is a virtual assistant going to be my tech to send it out every single week? That could work, right? But there's plenty of investor software out there that does what Privity does for agents. You just plug into one of those.
A virtual assistant being, what's the definition of a virtual assistant?
So a virtual assistant is somebody that might work in, they don't have to work in another country, they could work in another state, but they'll work virtually. We've had our virtual assistants for 8 years. They're from the Philippines. We've got 4 from the Philippines, 1 from Costa Rica, and they're wonderful, right?
And I believe our good friends in Alexandria, the Reynosos, are working on a
Ecuador.
virtual assistant business, right?
Company.
Look them up. Meetup, Grid Alexandria.
John Malatesta. Dude, long time no see.
Been a minute.
It has been a minute, man. I think of you every time I look at my Bitcoin account now. Anyhow,
So if you're looking for virtual assistants, look up Karen Reynoso in our network down in Alexandria, right?
For sure.
Virtual assistant, super powerful. Okay, so you get your list, you get someone somewhere doing something to help build that list, and then feed that list with hopefully helpful information coming from you. If nothing else, just to remind the world, hey, I'm out there with a somewhat specific message. If I can provide you some value, that's great. And if you come across this, or this, please think of me.
I'm gonna give you, you can go to myoutdesk.com, by the way, for virtual assistants. There's also, there's a really good one right now. It's called something hackers. Cyber hackers. Thank you. Cyber hackers. That's another really good one, by the way. You guys might want to look at. So you can get virtual assistants to just about every function in the business, and we've used virtual assistants for years, and we hire them directly ourselves, but they are a great source.
All right. So we've got our CRM, we've got a list, and now we're sending stuff out to it. Randomly, well, I guess you said you want to touch your database 3 or 4 times a month.
Yeah.
All right. Email costs you whatever the cost of the platform is. Right. An email
it's
list
free.
distribution system costs whatever your platform costs.
Yeah.
Right. You can get them for next to nothing.
Yeah.
Right. For a good email platform. But you can also spend money on stuff, right? So you can spend money I think the one that most people start with is postcards. So you've got your list of pre-foreclosures or estate properties, or you just drove around driving for dollars, right? You're writing down addresses of old roughed up houses. Now you say, I'm going to send these people a message. How often, how much, and for how long do you intend to send this message to a list if you're going to bother sending them something on paper?
So, so for us, so it depends on like what the window is. If it's probate, we know that there's kind of like an end time there, right? But let's look at absentee landlords. Like, I would just set them up and mail them forever. Like, once you do it, you would just send them forever. You would have a virtual assistant that's scrubbing against that list, see if anything's sold, to take them off. But once you initiate and commit, this is why I don't want you to spend money in the beginning, because once you commit, you're committing forever. Does that make sense? So, which means that you have to develop a budget that you can live with, paying an extended period of time, and not see a return for at least 6 months to a year. Where most investors mess up is that they go to some seminar, they hear like you got to mail to a pre-foreclosure list or probate list. They get a big list. They have maybe $6,000 to make this business work, and they decide that they're going to spend $2,000 a month on direct mail to this particular list, and it's 2, 4, 6, and they don't have any kind of return, and now they're out of money and they're out of business, right? So you have to say like, okay, can I develop a budget that I can live with, where I'm just going to set this and it's going to be okay for like
Could be
a year?
I'm
on 2 years on a list right now, and I'm not like.
Right, because it's a great idea to send a postcard to that house where you've seen a tree growing up through the middle of the pool in the backyard. That person is eventually going to need the service that you can provide and the help that you can give. But you need to be in the game when they finally get there. How many times have we been in the house with people, and there are like stacks of these things from a bunch of different investors? You just need to be there on the day that they decide to actually do something about it. And it's probably not going to be tomorrow. Maybe you'll get lucky, but if it's going to be 6 years, it costs 39 cents.
Buki and I were on an appointment where it was a estate property. The gentleman had collected every single postcard that any realtor had ever sent him, and his son brought out all the postcards and all of our postcards, and the dad had written a little Post-it note and said, "Call these people," right? And I was like, and we had the most, right, postcards that were there.
That would won the day, like the volume.
Volume always wins, right?
Volume doesn't hurt. That's why Bud Light and Miller Lite are still advertising millions and millions of dollars a day, because it works, right?
Yeah.
Volume works. So you have to be in it to win it. So you have to have a budget that is large enough, or a target market that is specific enough. Getting back to the first point of can't be everything to everyone. Pick a market, because then when you're really precise about it, if you want to buy something in Front Royal, you can pick a zip code in Front Royal, go on the zip code postcard software, and then send your thing to just that zip code forever if you need to.
Sure.
Right?
That would be expensive, but yes. Yeah.
Maybe an entire zip code.
Yeah,
might
it's
be a
gonna
little
be
pricey,
really
even-
expensive,
even
right?
Front Royal.
But you would do like an absentee owner in Front Royal, you know, and maybe just pick 1,000 choice homes, right? Or you could create, like, you guys ever heard of driving for dollars, right? I think driving for dollars is probably the easiest, underestimated, you know, marketing thing out there. But it's literally driving neighborhoods and writing down addresses of the ones that look like they need some love, putting that list into a spreadsheet, and then developing a postcard that they're gonna get for an extended period of time, right? That to me is the simplest, easiest, most effective way to do this. And nobody does it. Nobody, why? I don't know why people don't do it. They just don't do it. I just gave you guys literally that little thing will make you so much money if you actually implemented it. But there's always a disconnect between, like, okay, I wrote down the address, and now the discipline of writing down the address and putting it into a friggin' spreadsheet, it seems to be like a Herculean experience for most people. They can't do it. And then if they do get the ability to actually put it into the spreadsheet, then they never ever develop the postcard or the system to send it out. So that's why I encourage you to hire somebody, a virtual assistant. That's their job, to do that. Because most salespeople, or DIs or IDs, right, are not wired to do that.
So you can send a postcard, you can send a letter. Some people like put a penny in the letter so it kind of jiggles around and makes it seem like it might be more interesting, and maybe somebody opens it. I've heard of people like
Wedding
don't
invitation,
do this, but,
different
like,
colors.
You can find FedEx envelopes places and
I've
stick
done
a
that lots.
FedEx envelope on a porch, and that gets opened a lot. Find whatever
Warning, I
method
used
you
to
want
write on FedEx, like, warning, contents inside may cause your house to sell. Right? That's what I did. I like, literally, I'm like, this is when I'm into my hustle game, right? I would just say, okay, any expired listing that comes up in my market, warning, contents inside may cause your home to sell. And I'm gonna go drop off the package.
Did it work?
Of course, we got lots of appointments like that.
You still do it?
No, because it's not what I do.
Okay. It's not what you do because you found other things that are equally or more effective?
No, I think that's super effective. I think that's just a process that we never created a system around, right?
Okay.
So
there are things that you don't do anymore, right? You're not sending out yellow letters to people, right?
they would totally work if I sent them out.
Are you still
There's
doing?
no such thing as like, it all works.
It all works. I guess the point is, how do you know what has worked and what you should spend more money on?
So you're gonna start tracking your results, right?
Right. So whatever it is you're doing, Post-it notes, postcard, if you're spending money on it or spending time on it, you should track the time or the money and the end result so that you know the return on your investment on the thing, right?
That's right.
And then that's all about that split testing again. Now, instead of split testing the message, we're split testing the method. So if driving around and dropping off FedEx envelopes that say, call me because I'll get your house sold, gets a better return than sending out 6 months of postcards, then do the other thing. Do the thing that works, right? Because you only know if it works if you keep track of how many calls you get.
And the problem
and what
is
you get out
that
of it.
nobody lets that first piece of marketing marinate long enough, right? They try it for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 7 months, and they're like, oh, this doesn't work. And then they kill it, and then they go try something else for 5, and then it doesn't work. It all works. You just gotta stick with it long enough. And then you can actually have, like, I would say if you do something for a good year, year and a half, then you actually have some real data to be able to look at, right? Maybe you need to make the hook better. Maybe you need to make the story better. Maybe you, right? So, by the way, direct response marketing is, do some research on direct response marketing. That's the kind of marketing that you want to do. It's not branding marketing, it's direct response marketing. You need both, but direct response marketing is the best, which is a call to action.
I was going to say, define direct response marketing.
So direct response is going to say, you're going to give them some kind of large call to action, right? You're going to speak directly to their pain with a call to action, as opposed to, hey, I just sold this pretty house and look what I sold it for, right? It would be, hey, your home sold guaranteed in 60 days or less, or I'll sell it for free, right? Ask us how. That's direct response kind of marketing.
Your home sold as is condition, no agents, no commissions.
Yeah.
Something,
Click here for details, right?
call to action.
Call to action, some kind of call to action.
Okay. That's largely it. It's not any more complicated than that. Have a relatively simple message. Decide who you are going to send that message to. Start with going out to the market and making an offer to people. Then develop a network of people that you can get into discussions with. Then when you know what gets you into good discussions with people, then and only then decide to spend money on spreading that message around, and then track the stuff that you send out so that you know what actually gets the phone to ring, gets the email to come in, gets the response that you want. Then follow up with more of the thing that works best.
Yeah.
Right?
As we've kind of evolved in our world, we understand there's this rule called, like, for internet leads, the 10% rule, right? So 10% of all your internet leads, so think of like Facebook and Google and all the rest, are going to result in an appointment, and 10% of those appointments will result in a transaction. So you just say one. So 100 leads to one closed transaction is typically like what that flow looks like, right? Took me a long time to kind of figure that out, because I used to be like, these internet leads suck. No, that's the name of the game. That's just how it works, right? And so you need to know that that's what it looks like, right? So with direct mail, you've got to learn what that looks like for your marketing. Now, here's what's interesting, right? The other reason why I love, and it makes it complicated, the factor to figure out the ROI, right? Why I love picking areas is because marketing stacks and creates a compounding effect when it's done in one area, right? So think the analogy that I give you is like a magnifying glass that you're holding on paper. If you move that magnifying glass around on that piece of paper, it never catches fire. But when you hold that magnifying glass on one area, guess what happens? You start seeing the rays of the sun, like literally just focused on that one area, create smoke, and then there's fire, right? That's the analogy for just staying on your marketing message in your target market. Now what happens is, imagine when you're sending postcards into the market, then maybe they hear you on the radio in that market, then they see you on TV in that market, and then they see you at the local chamber of commerce in that market, then they see the sign in the yard for your business in that market, then they see you supporting the local chamber of commerce in that market. You can see what happens is, like, eventually you're just like a household name in that market. And when they think of real estate or real estate investing, like, they think of you. And then they're like, well, thank you so much for calling us. Where did you see us, right? What caused you to call us? They're like, oh, well, we see you everywhere, right? Was it the truck? Was it the postcard? Was it the community service thing? No, it's all of it combined, right? So.
And we've seen it pay dividends. We've got agents on the team, multi-millionaire now agents on the team that had to grind out for a while you built that reputation in a very specific hyperlocal market, right?
Oh yeah.
But it eventually builds to where now
It's an
everybody
asset.
knows you're the guy for
You're
the
the
thing.
team. You're the team.
Right.
You know, you own this market. You do it on the investment side. You do it building an insurance business. You build it any business. It's the same thing, right? It's the exact same thing. So who's got questions about this? And then we'll break for you guys to kind of like do a little networking together. Anything about the message? Anything about like conversation? Coleman, you always ask good questions. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
I'm thinking like you've got your list, you know, you've got $50 or whatever, you have a whole spreadsheet of people to market. You went over it earlier, would you go like marketing with postcards first, or trying to reach these people any other way? Like what's the first thing that you would
I always say prospecting, networking, marketing, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm gonna do on that list is I'll probably call them. I'll try, but you may not have numbers for all of them, right? Probably look on True People Search to see if there's like email addresses. I'm going to try to gather that data, right? So I'm going to go kind of like that direct hard way first. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer it with postcards afterwards. So I'm going to do some of the hard things first, and then I'm going to do like the marketing stuff second, right? And it just makes it more effective because you're going to put all those people in a database, right? And then your machine should just be like calls, emails, postcards, calls, emails, postcards, calls. Just like that, it just becomes a machine.
Okay, so it makes sense to call them first and then market to them rather than market and then call them.
That's right. And then what happens is, you know, you're gonna call them, they're not gonna remember you from Adam, then they're gonna see a postcard from you, and then you're probably gonna call them again at some point, and eventually they'll start recognizing you, right?
Like that.
Now calls to sellers are really easy calls, by the way, right? Because you're just like, hey, you know, Lori, like I call people all the time. It's super easy, and like just call and say, hey, Lori, I drove by your house. Like my wife and I buy property in this community. We love the community. I don't know if you're ever thinking about selling, but if you are, I might be an interested buyer. I could buy directly, right? And then they'll tell you right there, no, I'm not interested. Yes, I am interested. We're thinking about, people are always thinking about like moving to Florida when it gets cold, right? Or something, right? People are always kind of like in transition in their mind. Sometimes you hear, people are gonna have to carry me out in a box. Like I hear that quite often, right? Like, oh, people are gonna have to carry me out in a box. And we laugh, ha 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 ha.
That's when you ask if they need a box.
Well, that's what I say. Well, how soon do you think that's going to be? Right?
What?
Right? How soon? So anyhow.
That's a rapport builder. Easier to do in the last couple of years, yeah.
In the beginning of the conversation, you guys talked about how identifying where to invest. Now, I understand that you want to pick a dense area, but what do you do to like figure out like I guess like what would be the process to identify where would be a good area to
to invest, right? Yes. Well, then it goes back to what kind of investing do you want? If you want to do fix and flips, do you want to do buy and holds? Those are kind of different, right? So I'll let you tackle that.
I don't, are you interested in doing like just buy and renovate and
buy
resell?
And hold.
Buy and hold?
Yeah, just an example, buy and hold. Yeah.
Okay. So in this area, and I'd say try to stick in your backyard if you can, because presumably you know it as well as any market. To Rob's point of if an opportunity, when an opportunity does come up, you're more likely to be able to respond to it quickly if it's in an area that you already know. So in this area for buy and hold, it's all good. Anything within 90 minutes of downtown DC is probably pretty good. Northern Virginia, in my mind, is better than DC and Maryland from a landlord-tenant law perspective. Closer is always better. It's not real easy to get buy and hold projects that pencil out anywhere. It's harder the closer you get to your really high dollar urban downtown areas. So while it would be wonderful to have rentals in Arlington, it might not be the best use of your time, effort, and money to try to target people to sell you a buy and hold property in downtown Arlington. Maybe, but there's not going to be a whole lot of those that are going to make sense, right? So you go a little bit farther out, Falls Church, Route 50 corridor, maybe.
Keep going 50.
Keep going out a little bit farther now.
Prosper, Winchester.
Maybe if you know those markets, but for buy and hold, just because the numbers in most cases for kind of a bread and butter middle market buy and hold are so much tighter than they are even for fix and flip, you're gonna have to probably focus more on affordable markets. So Manassas, Herndon, pockets of Falls Church, Sterling, out into Culpeper, Woodbridge, places that still have enough density. If it's got townhouses in it, it's going to be a great buy and hold neighborhood, even if what you end up with is a single family. But if it's dense enough for townhouses, dense enough for me. So pick one of those markets to become an expert in.
Yeah, one of the things Roxana had did research was kind of
Buffalo,
like
New York.
Out of state, right? And so I ran that type of business for 5 years.
Right, you have mentioned that.
Right? And so I would be very wary to do that because you don't know the market, right? You're now trusting the landlord that's there or the property manager. Property managers are great, but remember, you're one of many. Nobody's going to take care of that asset as well as you are. Now you're like far away from that. You can't quite pay attention to it as well as if it was just 40 minutes or an hour down the road. It becomes more difficult, right? And there's a lot of room for slippage when you when you do that, right? So I agree with Mark, start in your backyard, but then grow outside of your backyard, but only when you really have a compelling reason to go there, to be honest with you. Like, do you want to visit Buffalo, New York often? Do you have family there?
You and I talked about how it's a good for buy and hold, but it's not good, it's not gonna grow in value to sell it in a few years if we want
It's a cash flow market, but you
Right,
got,
cash flow market, that's what, yeah.
yeah, but you gotta be careful with that, like, that's a trap.
Right.
I found that those are traps,
So
right?
like, I guess like my question was also like, how do you identify if that's like the property value will never go up there? It will
Growth
stay-
in markets. So that's a great permits. You can go in and you could look at the county and you look at permits, you look at like population growth in that market. There's all this data that says, hey, this area is growing. You see, like, right now, there's a list of like the top 10 places that people are moving to in the United States, right? You've got places like Tampa, which is a big one, right? And I'm like, yes, we bought a little condo in St. Pete, right, which is right there, right? And so if you love St. Pete, that might be a reason why you want, like, if you like it, other people.
every year.
Okay. So you start saying, where are people moving to and where is population growing? And look at the, what's the average age, right? If the average age starts skewing younger, like, that's a good thing, right? They're they're the next workforce, they're spending money, like, all that stuff.
Yep, sorry, I think I distracted you with the
Yeah, I
random,
was like,
with the random button click.
What's happening?
Well, here,
Okay.
I'll click in the right direction, at least this way.
Any other questions? Yes.
Could you speak more about absentee owners and how to get their attention and accurate information? Because a lot of times, even in public records, we might not have, we know it's being rented, but it's showing that they're living there, or, what's the other example? Can you speak a little bit more about absentee
I
owners?
feel like it's covered in this area, honestly.
What do you mean covered?
I'm joking, because I'm doing the same thing. I was just making a joke,
Oh,
and I know
oh.
that you know that. No. How I do it is literally I've used prop string several times, just pulled list. If people have multiple residences and you see their mailing address is different from the address that they own, and I just call them. I've had good success just picking up the phone and calling them.
Yeah, have you ever used Mojo? Right, so just putting those lists in the Mojo and then calling them, I've had really good success, like calling those as well, but, you're there's gonna be a lot of corrupted data, but that's just normal, it's a law of large numbers at that point, right?
And then as far as the message goes to an absentee landlord, annoyed with your tenants, you're sick of cleaning out clogged up toilets or evicting dirt bags from your whatever, think of the problems that a landlord may be facing. Facing any of these problems, I buy houses as is with tenants. You get phone calls.
I'll tell you what's really interesting. So my wife and I, we own rental property, right? And I was telling Mike this before. In 20 years, I've only had 2 people call me about my properties, right? Recently, we've been getting a number of text messages, right? So it's like, hey, and it's normally things like, if you're still thinking about selling the property on 25th Street, right? It's interesting, but nobody really targets the list. Like, I'm like, nobody calls me. I want people to call me.
You don't
right?
get calls on the Herndon portfolio?
2 times in 15 years. Think about that. Nobody calls a list, right?
There's something out there.
Maybe
A dozen
it's
houses in Herndon.
Yeah.
You might one day sell one.
Yeah.
There you go.
That was an eye opener for me too, because I own an out-of-state rental, and I've not once been called about it.
Yeah.
Never.
No,
I mean, I
so
live
it's
in
like,
the same state, you know.
and here's the thing. I made one day, I spent 8 hours and I called and talked to 100 people, right? They were all absentee owners. And literally it was just like, hey, Mike, I noticed that you own property 123 Any Street. Do you have a second just for a quick business matter? And they're like, yeah, what's this about? I'm like, hey, I'm just curious. Like, do you still plan on keeping that as a rental, or are you thinking about potentially selling it anytime in the near future? Because I'm interested in maybe exposing this to some of my buyers, because I have buyers that want to buy in this neighborhood, right? And they'd be like, oh, I'm thinking maybe we'll do something like the next year or so, right? So then that just becomes like just a follow-up system. But that call is so easy to make.
But you're right, I've never gotten a call, and I've got one where I'm super easy to find. It's in my own stupid name.
All of mine are in my name.
It'd be easy to
Oh,
find.
no, ours aren't.
I get letters, never phone calls.
Do you recommend like Red X for the absentee owners
Yes.
list? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what we did Red X for a long time, right? So, it is a great market to go after, but if you're gonna do it, that's what you do, right? It's almost like everything else is a distraction. It's like I'm trying to like just go in on that market, right? And you could build relationships with all those landlords. Think about it, like if you could say, hey, I'll give you a rental analysis, or maybe you don't like your property manager, or maybe you're thinking about maybe now you're gonna hire a property manager, or maybe you're thinking about what would the value be if you just upgraded the kitchen and the bathrooms. I can give you those estimates. Like you literally can create so much value for that absentee landlord, right? Now, if you're going at it from the perspective of buying it, like Mark said, right? Then it's like, hey, you're tired of being a landlord? You're tired of the eviction process, right? And sometimes, wintertime is often a good time to be touching them. Pipes freezing. I got pipes frozen on one of mine right now. It's fun.
There you go. Well, those are two huge takeaways. Make calls to an absentee landlord list, and use somebody's found overnight shipping envelope on a doorstep, because everybody always opens those, right? Those two big ones.
Especially when it says contents, warning inside, may change your life.
Ooh, that's good. All right, cool.
Okay, guys, well, we're going to wrap it up here live and then let you guys network here in person. This is like the valuable exchange cards, although nobody does that anymore, right? It's like,
But if you do want to get to know one another in a different place where you can follow up and ask more questions, or find out who's got deals, or ask about contractors or anything else, face poke us. Get on the face stream and find us under what are we, a group?
He's old. That's the
Under
problem.
Facebook groups, Grid Investor, the Grid Investor Network, not the page, it's a group.
Great investor community.
Grid Investor Community, that's right. Ask to join, we'll let you in, doesn't cost a thing. And then you can post away, and you can see people talking about
Unless
stuff.
you're
People
spamming, and
posting
then we
deals.
get you
Don't
out.
let you spam. But we let people put deals in there, and people do it all the time. So check us out there. And then, of course, when Meetup is hopefully back up working again, RSVP for the next